Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and today we're going to be taking a look at how to reattach the legs on this vintage Kenner large-sized Chewbacca doll. Now this is a figure that I pick up fairly regularly, the ones that you see pretty often, but they always have the same problem. That's the fact that the joint that holds the legs on tends to get damaged, and more often than not I will find them with either one leg snapped off or one leg sort of partially snapped off with the joint sort of hanging away like this. And until recently I hadn't actually bothered to sort of try and work out a fix for them, just because it seemed something that was almost impossible to repair, just because of the way this sort of break happens and the way that you can't actually get the body of this figure apart. But recently I did actually come up with an idea, and I thought I'd give it a go today and see if we can reattach the legs on both of these Chewbaccas. Now one of them is in relatively good condition, this guy on the left. This is his leg, and you can see that it's sort of broken at the joint there, but I was able to remove this leg completely. The other leg is perfectly fine. The other Chewbacca down, this is one that I bought in a job lot a good while back, and I didn't realise until it sort of turned up that both the legs had actually snapped off, and the previous owner had glued them in place with rather a large amount of glue. So this one is in a fairly tatty condition. There's lots of wear and there's lots of glue marks, and I've tried to tidy it up as best I can, but really this is a very poor condition Chewbacca. You can see just the amount of glue that's left on it, but I still reckon we should be able to save this one as well. First up though, we're going to fix this guy on the left. Both Chewbacca and Darth Vader are constructed in roughly the same way, so the arms are held on with a sort of a rubber band or an O-ring type thing. That breaks quite often, and I've shown in two different videos how to reattach those. And the legs are also held on in a roughly sort of similar way. So you have a leg here, and it has this joint that when the figure is fused together along this side, that joint is trapped inside the body, enabling you to rotate the leg like this. But for some reason over the years this becomes quite weak. I think it's possibly the design of it, because you can pull these legs apart, sort of try and pull them apart, and it just tends to shear off this leg joint. So you can see here, this is one that has sort of partially broken. If I bring in this other one, this is normally how you'll see them. So they've sort of, it's completely broken off, and quite often you'll find that bit is still left inside the figure. So here we have one where that sort of whole joint is sheared off and is still inside Chewbacca. Now for a long time I sort of wondered how I would go about fixing this, because it's a really awkward problem. I didn't want to split the figure apart, because obviously you'll end up damaging it a lot more. Sort of, it's glued right around the seam. You'd more than likely end up with lots of sort of cut marks and general breakage around the edge of this figure. In fact, you can see here that this figure has been broken at one point. There was a slight crack there. It looks like that might have even been done when the figure was made. So opening it just isn't really an option. And then recently I was thinking of a fix that I'd done on another toy. I'd fixed this Duke, the sort of super action dog figure, and I'd used a piece of rubber and sort of pushed it inside and made a new joint using that. And I thought, oh well, there is something very similar to that you can easily buy, and they are grommets. So here we have, this is a grommet. Now this is the sort of thing that you use for wiring. This one is a sealed grommet. You can actually sort of break that part in the middle and push wires through it. And this is designed, if you drill a hole in a piece of metal or something, you put this in, and the edge of this protects the wires from rubbing on the raw metal. And you can buy these in multiple sizes. So this one I picked up is, I think it's 35mm, because I measured the size of this hole, and you can see if we measure across, that is about 35mm. It actually varies depending on which way you measure it, so about 35mm. So I bought a 35mm grommet, and if you look at the edge of this, you can see it's got a little groove in it, and that I was thinking would be perfect, because it looks a little bit like this joint. So we can do a quick test fit of this into Chewbacca's body. Let's see if we can push that in. Yeah, you can see that clips on quite nicely. If we actually remove the inner part of this grommet, that would fit on very nicely. So that is going to be what we're going to use as the basis of making a new joint for Chewbacca's leg. So let's modify this a bit, because I think it needs a little bit of modification, and then we can try reattaching his leg. So these grommets are very easy to find. I actually just went onto eBay, typed in the diameter that I wanted, which was 35mm, and these were the first ones that came up, and I ordered these from China. So they took about a month to arrive. I ordered a pack of 5 of them just because I've got a few figures to fix, yeah, they've arrived and they are perfect. They gap between the two sort of rubber edges is nice and wide, and I think that's the important bit. You can see here there's about 2mm in the sort of gap there, because by the time you push these two bits of plastic together, you want quite a nice sort of wide area for that to sort of grip around. So a quick search on eBay for a 35mm grommet, and these are the ones that turned up, and yeah, definitely going to be good enough for what I need. Right, so to get this modified, I'm going to straight away cut out this middle section because we don't need that. What we really need is just the edge part. So I've got my plastic nippers here. I'm going to quickly cut that inner section out. You could probably do this with a knife, but I find plastic nippers a very easy way of doing this, and none of this needs to be particularly neat either, because it's all going to be hidden inside the Chewbacca figure. So there we go. That makes it a lot easier to work because you can now squidge this. I think the next thing I want to do is actually take off this old fixing. This one is sort of only partially broken, but it's broken enough that at some point that's going to snap completely, and I think I might as well remove that completely. So I'm just going to get a knife and we'll cut off this original joint so that we can make a new one from scratch. So just going to get a knife and I'll carefully cut around the edge of this. It's actually come off very easily. This plastic is very soft. I've got a slight raised edge there, so I'm going to trim that down just by hand. It's easier to do when there's nothing in the sort of way visually. There we go. I think that's a nice clean edge. Now, as you can see, this grommet fits in the body perfectly, but it's going to be too wide to fit in the top of this leg. There's just not enough area around the top of this. So I think I'm going to trim one side of the grommet down. I'm going to take, let's say, about 3mm off around the edge of one side of this. Again, I'm going to do this with the plastic nippers. I can just put that in and we'll just quickly cut around. Again, don't think it needs to be particularly neat, because this is all going to be hidden inside the body. So you can see that's now a lot thinner on the left hand side, and I also want to taper it as well, so I'm just going to take the edge of this off so that we don't have a sort of a right angle there. I'm going to give it a slight angle. Again, we can do this with the plastic nippers. I'm just going to go again just round the edge. That should make it easier to fit into the leg, and there's not that much space at the top part of the leg. We want to sort of give it just that little bit more space to fit in. You can be fairly quick with plastic nippers, which is why I like using them. They're nice and sort of versatile for chopping all sorts of plastic. So you can see now that's more what I'm wanting. We've got a slight angle to that edge. I think this should just fit in here. Let's give that a test fit and squeeze it in. Yeah, look at that, perfect. That's the start of the new joint for Chewbacca's leg. Now let's try and fit the rest of this into his body. Now this next part is going to be really quite tricky, because what we want to do is push this part of the grommet into the body section, and I'm just going to use, this is a thin file just so that I can sort of push and sort of manhandle this piece in. I reckon it can be done. I'm not sure if it can be done on camera. That may be a sort of a step too far, but I will certainly give it a go. So I'm going to just start pushing this in and we'll see what happens. I think probably I can hook the first bit under. Yeah, really, it's not going to be easy, but I reckon it can be done. Right, and with a little bit of sort of jiggering about, I did a little bit more off camera just to make sure it's sort of all fitted in place. But as you can see there, that is Chewbacca's leg back on. So this is his original leg, and this is the one that's held on with this giant grommet. And you can see that is actually holding on pretty nicely. Obviously, if you pull it too much, you can pull this out because the rubber just bends. But for general posing and that works remarkably well. I'm pretty amazed at how easily that's gone in and how nicely that has fitted. It actually makes the leg, you can actually sort of pose it. You can see I can pose that and it's not going to move around. The other leg on this Chewbacca is very loose, so it doesn't want to stay in place. But that has worked remarkably well. I didn't think it would work quite that sort of so smoothly, but yeah, really good. Really impressed with that. I think I'd like to give this another go. Now, the other Chewbacca I have is in a much worse condition. You can see there's quite a lot of damage, so it may not work so smoothly with that one, but this is, yeah, that's gone in remarkably well. So for a very cheap piece of rubber grommet, that is, yeah, a very satisfying fix. Let's try it on the other Chewbacca and we'll see what happens with that. This is the other Chewbacca I have. I've actually chipped away a lot of the glue. There's still quite a lot of glue around here, but I didn't want to do it too much because hopefully in the end this will all be sort of hidden if I can get the legs back on. It does have the original joint still stuck inside it. I think I'm just going to have to use a pair of plastic nippers. We'll try and cut this and remove it. Actually, this one is very brittle, so maybe that's the reason why these legs fall off. This plastic has gone quite brittle. You see, that didn't take any effort at all to remove. Yeah, so that's not what I was expecting. I thought this would still be very flexible. No, look, you can see that has gone incredibly brittle, so that is the reason why these legs fall off. That plastic just is brittle, and I can see why there's so much damage to this. So anyway, let's give this a go. I've already prepared a couple more grommets in the same way, so this is another one. You can see I've trimmed down the side and I've given it a slight taper so that we can push that into the top part of the leg. So I've got two of those ready. I'll just give this a go. Now on this Chewbacca I can actually show you inside so you can see exactly what the grommet is doing, and it really just does replace that original joint. You can just about see it in there. It's fairly awkward to get in, I have to say. It's much easier to do off camera, which is why I stopped filming that and just sort of moved slightly away, because you need to really hold both parts quite firmly, and I can't do that and sort of jiggle this file in to sort of move everything about with the camera in front of me. But it really is possible. You can see that this leg is now nice and firmly in place, and you can see it rotates around quite nicely inside there. If I can just get the light shining in, it's works remarkably well. So I'm going to get this other leg on. This is probably the most awkward leg because it's actually split, and at some point someone's glued it. It's in a very nasty sort of condition, but I still reckon I should be able to do it. So let's just have a go. I'm going to do this one all off camera just because it's so much easier and so much quicker. So let's give this a go and I'll show you the end results. This Chewbacca turned out to be a lot more hassle just because of the amount of damage that is around the tops of these legs. But as you can see, I have actually managed to get it to sort of stay in place. It just took, I'd say, about 15 minutes to get both legs on, which is not too bad. And they do work now. And but considering this Chewbacca has been in my sort of 4 parts box for a long time, because I thought there was nothing much I could do with him. I was just expecting to be able to sort of reuse his arms at some point if I found another broken Chewbacca. He's actually come together really quite nicely. He had so much damage around his legs and so much glue, but now these are back in place. That actually doesn't look too bad at all. So these plastic grommets really do the job very nicely. Now, I was planning to show this same fix on this vintage 15-inch Darth Vader doll that I have here, and very kindly Ray from Saturday Morning Heroes Toys in Cincinnati sent me over another busted Darth Vader. He in fact sent me over this Darth Vader who has 2 perfectly good legs, and I didn't really want to sort of break the legs off this just to show you the fix, but I believe it should work. In fact, I've bought some other O-rings. Now these are slightly smaller O-rings. These are 25mm O-rings. The gap in them is a little bit less, so they're a little bit sort of fiddlier to fit, but they should work just as well. I'll just in fact do a quick test so you can see that this O-ring will slot just exactly where Darth Vader's leg goes. It's a little bit tighter, this one. I might be inclined to buy some slightly different O-rings. These are fairly solid rubber. You can get the nice sort of soft ones. These bigger ones that I bought are made of a much softer rubber, but the same process should work if you have a broken Darth Vader doll. I don't believe these legs break off quite as often as Chewbacca. The plastic they're made of is very different, but I do have this one in my collection. So this one that Ray has sent over, as I say, from Saturday Morning Heroes Toys in Cincinnati, I am going to just fix this one up because I do happen to have a spare pair of arms, so I'm going to be just restoring this Vader to being normal rather than breaking his leg off to show a fix. But as you can see, the grommets work remarkably well. These are a very easy thing to get. I picked these up off eBay. They cost, I think I paid £1.90 for 5 of these grommets, including postage from China, and these are the 35mm ones. I will put a link in the description to the eBay auction that I purchased them from, but obviously eBay auctions come and go, so it may not be there by the time this video goes live, but I'll still put a link to it anyway, so if you want to have a go and grab some of those. So hope this fix has been of interest to you. It certainly was to me. I wasn't expecting it to be so easy to do. I've now got a couple more Chewbaccas that, although this one is in sort of really quite terrible condition, actually looks perfectly displayable by the time you've got their legs in place. So if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button, tap the bell to be notified for each time I upload a new video, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.